Is there anything that really you want to get a message out before we go into
I
your
want to get a
testing?
message out, and this is what I'm going to tell you. I tested positive with vinyl chloride.
If you like my videos, please like, subscribe, and share, and comment if you can. It helps the algorithm so that this video can spread across the world. Now that the politicians and the media is gone, it sheds a light on our little town of East Palestine, Ohio. And if you would, check out our Facebook group, East Palestine Off the Rails. Get the truth from the people that live here. And when I get a little too dicey for YouTube, you can check me out on Rumble as Phoenix on the Sword. That is Phoenix on the Sword. And lastly, our Give, Send, Go and our GoFundMe site you can find under East Palestine Off the Rails. Our goal is to give funds to people that want to get out of here but financially cannot. We have gotten no financial help from the federal government, and people are struggling and many want to leave. Thank you so much for caring, and thank you for watching.
Okay, so on my day off, when I said I was going to do nothing, we're doing a second interview right after the one we just did with Chrissy. So we're here with Jake Cozza.
Yes, Eric's my real name.
Eric?
So
you go by Eric?
Nickname is Jake.
Okay, so we just met just a few minutes ago, and I had to prod him to come in and beg him because he's really quiet about everything. He really doesn't. He's not very outspoken at all. That's a joke because he seems to be very outspoken about what has been going on here. So we're going to talk about his experience in this whole derailment and subsequent chemical bomb, and just kind of talk to him about how life has been going and some of the experiences that he's been through since this has all happened. So, all right, well, nice to meet you.
Nice meeting you, sir.
And first of all, where do you live?
I live 0.3 miles on East Martin Street from the derailment. I actually felt the heat from the fire when it initially went off.
So you were at home?
Yes, I was at home. I do foster care. I'm a treatment level facility. I had 4 foster kids in there. I had 2 large dogs and 3 adults in my home at the time, and my grandbaby. So the police department come to the door and told us we have to evacuate. So I go to Columbiana.
The whole dogs and everything?
Everything.
Okay.
Go to Columbiana.
Where did you go? Where did you go to Columbiana?
To the Days Inn or whatever that is up there. I go in there and I had to get 2 rooms, and they told me it was $185 a night. And I'm like, oh my. So I said, do you do military discount? And so she gave me the 10% discount because I was in the military. So I stayed there for 2 nights. Had 2 rooms because I had a female that was 17-year-old, I had a male that was 17-year-old, and I had 2 16-year-olds. They can't be in the same room together. So I said, I can't afford this no more. So I had a friend that worked down in Lisbon. And
so at this point, you were paying out of your own pocket?
Oh, I've been paying everything that I've done. I paid out of my own pocket, and then I have got reimbursed, but I pay everything out of pocket for the simple fact is I want receipts. I want it on my bank statement.
Okay.
I heard one of the guys say that we're uneducated hillbillies. Well, the hillbilly might be right, but we're far from uneducated.
Yeah. What's wrong with being a hillbilly?
I fish these creeks. I'm an avid hunter. I forage mushrooms and herbs and stuff. Been doing it since I've been a little kid. I knew something was wrong. I checked my deer trail cams, and they weren't there.
And you're talking about not uneducated. You were a trained cook, or? Right?
I went to the Pennsylvania Culinary Arts.
Okay.
I've been a block layer since I've been 16 years old. I did refactory work, so I know a little bit about some of these VOCs and what they're saying. I paid attention.
Okay.
And benzene. If we'd go into the benzene tanks, we'd have to have forced air. We would also have to have rubber suits on. We would have to have chem baths on our way out.
Okay.
So I know a lot about this stuff. So I knew something was wrong. I could tell by the taste in my mouth.
So when you say you knew something was wrong, what do you mean?
I knew something was wrong as soon as I heard the train screeching. Because I also was standing, I was standing on my front porch when this happened. And I seen what was on the train. I seen the tanks that was on that train.
Okay.
So I knew there was chemicals on that train. I didn't know what chemicals at the time were on the train, but I knew that it was on the train.
So before you left, when that happened, in that transition period between the derailment and before you went to Columbiana, for a lot of you aren't going to know this, but it's a town 10 miles, 8 miles out of town?
10
west.
miles. Yes.
So tell me about what was going on just as you're frantically like trying to get the family out
Well,
there.
as soon as I seen the flames come up, because people didn't realize after I heard that thing crash, it was approximately 5 minutes later before the flames came up.
Okay.
That's approximate. So everybody thinks that train exploded once it derailed. No, that's not true. I heard it derail, and then 5 minutes later, I felt the flames from it.
Okay.
So I go in and I told everybody to start getting ready. I was like, listen, I'm telling you, we got to get out of here. And my fiance, she has myasthenia gravis, which is not an immune disease. She was like, well, we got to get the dogs, and she takes her good old time on anything she does because she don't take anything serious. I said, no. And I started panicking, and I'm not one to panic. I'm not afraid of too many things in life. And this scared me. It did. It scared me bad. So we left up in Columbiana and we went to Lisbon because I had a friend that ran the place.
Now, at that time, did you smell anything, or you didn't smell anything yet?
No, I didn't smell anything at that time.
Okay.
To be honest with you, I didn't smell anything at that time. So one of my friends is a manager down in Lisbon. We go down there, and she gave us a really good deal. So I decided I'm going to have to come into town, get clothes. Foster kids need their medicine. My fiance needs her medicine because we didn't grab none of that. We left in more or less her pajamas. So we went, and I came into town. And that's when I smelled it. I smelled it bad. As soon as I walked in my home, I'm like, listen, my mouth's tingling, my eyes are watering, my nose is burning, my ears are ringing. There's something wrong here.
Was this the next day?
This was 2 days later.
2 days later.
Yeah,
So
I waited
Sunday,
2 days.
Sunday?
Yes, I
Okay.
waited 2 days. I said, listen, we can't go back there. I can't put you in this position. She's like, I want to go home. I want to go home. I want to go home.
Yeah.
So then they started this so-called controlled burn.
Which was Monday.
And I was like, listen, we're not going to be able to go home. So I rented it for an extra week, thinking after a controlled burn, there's no way that they're going to have us come back there. And I'll be dang, 2 days later. Yeah. They released it. So I'm listening to it on the TV, and the wine says, they're giving us a route back. I said, I'm very outspoken, and I'm told I have no filter. So I was like, I know how to get back to my home. I need to know when we get in our home what I got to throw away, what I'm allowed to touch, what I can even clean with. And nobody would give any answers. We still ain't got no answers from it to this day. And so, almost 3 months. So I go into the home first. The fiance is still in the hotel with the kids. I go in there and I start taking the vegetables that were, the fruit that was on my counter, and start throwing stuff away. Start like cleaning up. And then I decided, well, I'm going to take paper towels, dry paper towels. I'm going to wipe my counters. I'm going to stick them in a baggie. And I recorded everything and time and dated it. So that maybe if there is something in here and it's harmful, that it'll help me later on. So I start doing that, and I go back to the hotel, and I said, "Come on, we got to go," because with the foster kids, they made us go home because it was safe. That's what we was told. It was safe, so I have to bring the foster kids in because they have their counselors coming. I have cameras set up in the common areas because of their behavior.
Got it.
So while we was down there, they decided to have some behaviors. So the agency come in and took my children, all but one, because they couldn't find him at home because he was such a high level kid. And the one boy I had for 3 years, I was on the last stage of adoption. All I had to do was go to court. I was waiting for the court to adopt him. They took him out of my home. Devastated my fiance.
Wow.
I mean, these are our kids by this time. So the other one came home with us. He goes to school.
So where you were staying, they started having behavioral problems.
Yes. And people keep asking, why was your kids removed? I can't really go into details because
What do you
of
mean?
the hip.
Why were they removed? They were removed from where
From
you were staying. From you, they were removed.
yes, that while we was in the hotel, 2 of them was removed.
Okay.
Because of behaviors.
Okay.
And I can say that part of it, but every time an ass asks me, it's like because you're trained to be around. Because I'm not giving you the information because I'm not allowed to get going to too much depth with it. So I get back home with the other one. He goes to school. Comes back in. And I got pictures. Eyes beat red, like I'm in water. So my fiance and my foster boy goes down to Mercy Health. She was diagnosed with dermatologist of chemicals.
Dermatitis?
Or dermatitis. I'm
Mhm.
sorry, dermatitis with from chemicals. He was diagnosed with chemical irritation of the eyes, eye drops, all this other stuff. They don't do that no more. You go down there and they refuse to say anything.
Allergies?
Allergies. I've had a respiratory infection for I think 2 months. Been on prednisone and antibiotics, and every time they go, they run out, I go back into the same symptoms. No taste, no smell, dry mouth, as you can see,
Yeah.
eyes watering. So I started getting kind of paranoid for myself. I started doing a lot of research.
Can we stop there for a second?
Yeah.
I will get right back to this. So you've had your one foster child for 3 years and you were ready to adopt.
Yes.
So from someone outside looking in, you uproot a family and you put them in 2 hotel rooms. Is that correct?
2 hotel rooms
2
because
hotel
I had a
rooms.
female and a male
Yeah.
and a female can't be in the same room at that age together.
Yes. And then during this whole upheaval, then you end up losing him.
Yes.
I have that part of the story right.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's
yes,
pretty
sir.
tragic. So
yes, and here's the thing about it also is that these kids, the boy had a rough life. That's why he's in foster care, of course. But I had him to where he's going to walk across the stage and graduate. Plain and simple. He was going to graduate. He was so proud to graduate. When they took him out of my home, they took him to Cleveland, and they stuck him in another home, and they didn't enroll him in school for 2 weeks. He failed. This kid didn't get to walk across the stage.
Wow.
So the foster care system is a whole different thing. It's failing kids daily, and I watch it every day. They fail them.
So that's another whole
that's
tragedy.
a whole different trade right
But I mean,
there.
a whole different tragedy. Just not your
Yes.
immediate family is still in your home, but now you have somebody that was displaced who,
Yes.
that has happened to since this.
Yes.
Okay, so you go ahead on with your story.
No, it's the same way with the other kids. One of the kids, and I can say it now. He was on the streets down in Columbus. Actually, a street kid, 13 years old, came into my home. He's another one I had passing school. His behaviors were starting. He did a 180, but he still had behaviors. And when we was down there, he got mad. He got mad because we wasn't at home, and he went AWOL. He went AWOL, and so that was the reason why they wanted to get him out of there.
And how long did you have that child?
For 2.5 years.
Wow.
All these kids except for the female, and I had her approximately like 6 months. Then it just went from problem to problem with the children. So we get back home, and I started doing this research. I started putting up trail cams around the site. I started videotaping everything. I started calling the mayor out. I started calling the chief of police out. Was I wrong? Just in the beginning, no, I wasn't. I was mad. I was angry. And then I started feeling sorry for them. Like, yeah, they've been up for days. And I commend the first responders, and I commend for what they did. It's not out of ignorance. It wasn't out of malice. It was out of education.
Yeah.
When a fire chief gets up on the stage and says, I only fight fires. I was so mad. I was like, you're disqualified. You're disqualified by saying that, because we all know that you don't spray water on a chemical fire. And this is how I felt. I had so much anger. And then the mayor was not standing beside us. He wasn't. They were getting pissed when you stand up and walk out of a press conference because somebody asked a wrong question. It had me frustrated. I was so mad because we wasn't getting answers. And then after talking to him personally, I was like, oh, man, you've been up for days. I understand. You're probably just as pissed as I am. You don't know what's going on. And it's like, I start feeling sorry. And now I'm mad again. I am. When I see, the fire chief with Alan Shaw on photos, and I seen him at the, that wing bash that they had yesterday. And
I didn't know anything about
oh
that.
yeah, there was a wing bash. Alan Shaw was in town. And
Was it where they rented that new place?
I guess
I made a little joke about, the new
no,
site for the toxic dump.
well,
is that I don't know what that.
I think they had it at the Moose, to be honest with you.
Okay. Oh my
I
God.
didn't even know about this, to be honest with you. I started seeing pictures and doing research. It's the same way with the dirt they was digging at the park. I sat over there for 2 hours and watched them dig dirt. And I do have videos on it. I'm waiting for the right time.
Okay.
I got a lot of videos that I have that I'm not ready to release yet, because there's going to be a right time to do it, and I don't want to over.
Well, the wing bash actually makes sense because they make the mooses. Those are Dan's wings.
Them were good wings. Yes.
Oh my Lord, those are good. So Alan Shaw was at the mooses, and they had, which I mean,
it was for the first responders, is what I told.
Absolutely, that's awesome for the first responders.
I do. I totally agree.
And
but it was a kick in the face to watch. It would have been different if he didn't show up. You know what I mean? I would have never even batted an eye, because it's everybody's prerogative. If you want to go over to the park and play or whatever, listen, the kids don't. You're supposed to be a kid's protector, and to me, some of the people that took their kids over there, I disagree with. But I tell everybody, I value your opinion, even on your site, off the rails. When somebody bashes me or says something about what I'm doing, I value your opinion, because I do value. Yeah. I value everybody's opinion.
I say, like, we were in a war, and when you put 10 people in a foxhole, all those 10 people are going to react differently. But there's something to learn from everybody's reaction. But the worst thing those 10 people can do is fight amongst themselves.
When I was in the military, I learned that if you piss enough people off or piss somebody off, they'll make a mistake. And that I've played that game here with what's going on, because if I go and play dumb, which I'm not dumb, I'll go play dumb and I'll ask the same question 50, 60 times and play stupid. Sooner or later, I piss them off enough to where they give me little bits and pieces of information.
So then, what are some of these things that can you think of any?
Okay, I went into my healthcare provider, Mercy Health. I asked a question: can I get a vinyl chloride and a benzene test? And she says, "Well, under CDC guidelines, we can't give that test." I said, "What do you mean my health provider can't give this test?" I said, "Under CDC guidelines, what do you mean by that?" "Well, we can't give the test. We have no ways to give the test. When we enter it in our computer, there's nothing that comes up for vinyl chloride or benzene." Like
in their computers.
In their computers, they can't. I got it all on video. I've put it on my own page. What I did is I stuck the camera on top of the counter while I asked questions. Well, I asked them a couple questions. She said, "I'll go talk to the doctors and nurses." So I have it on camera, 10, 15 minutes of me standing there waiting for them to have their little meeting. A nurse comes out and gets me, takes me in the back room and starts explaining to me. I keep asking the same question over and over and over. What CDC guidelines did they give you to where I can't be tested by my own provider? I said, who are they to play God? And I kept on saying that. And finally, Dr. Cohen came in, and he was like, what do you, and he starts explaining. He said, we can't get no answers. We can't get no answers from the CDC. I can't get no phone calls back. And he goes on and on. He said, I'll write you a prescription. He said, have fun trying to fill it. So I called 20 some places.
So that was great. He did write you.
He did write me a prescription after, like I said, to shut me up though. And that's how I felt, because everything that we do is a fight, and it's an argument. Sooner or later, it becomes to where I got to control myself, because I start getting angry and I don't want to make the mistake.
Yeah. And also, when you say there is no way in our computer that we can write that, let me just say that it's not a difficult test to order. Just as he, with the stroke of a pen, wrote you a prescription, I guess it would be difficult if there is some entity telling you that you're not supposed to order it, but actually to physically ordered that test is not. It's very simple.
That's why I called them out, because the CDC set their guidelines to where they said that we don't need to test. We don't need to test.
The CDC set the guidelines with who? Do you even know?
Through Mercy Health.
So the one entity, or they're telling all these?
They're telling all of Mercy Health through CDC guidelines that that we don't need to test.
So in a moment,
by what I have on video, Mercy Health saying.
So in a little while, we're actually going to see how flawed that is and why why that is flawed. So you did end up getting a prescription.
Yes, I got a prescription. I called 20 different places. There were some places that was told to me that it was tested. Well, they quit, because the only two places I could go to is LabCorp or Quest. The only two places I could find that would do this testing. And if you want to look into, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but Vanguard owns both of them. Same person that owns the railroad.
We're open to
any. Because this is how my mind works. I'm trying to figure out who owns what owns who, and why is it only two places the test, and it makes a little bit of sense. So, and this is where I was wrong, because when I went up and I got my test last week.
So now, from somebody that has, I'm actually no fan of Alan Shaw or Norfolk. Well, I don't know, so I have probably treated hundreds of Norfolk Southern workers over the years. Love them. I mean, I'm just so angry about what was done after the accident here, how they put the
I don't think it's the workers.
Not at all.
And I don't think it's the people down at the center, because I've questioned them to a certain degree. It's whoever you get, and if they're having a bad day, or if they've been away from their family long enough, they're going to give you crap if you give them crap.
The union workers cut through here. As I'm filming, they're smiling at me, they're joking around. No, but what I'm saying is, so just for that theory. Now, if Vanguard, who I'm familiar with, Vanguard owns Quest and LabCorp, wouldn't that go against your theory that why would they still be testing?
Well, it did at first. It did at first, because I
want to know what you're thinking. I
figured. See, here's my thing: if they're the only two testing, then my test results were going to come back negative.
Oh,
you know what I mean by that?
With those two companies who this is just, again, who knows?
Yeah, and this is just how my brain thinks. Yeah, because I got to look at it from every different aspect, because this has put a strain on my brain like I've never had to deal with. None of us has had to deal with something like this. But if I'm not fighting and not asking questions and doing things.
See, this is what happens too. When oh my Lord, this is not his experience only. It's been my experience. Any townspeople that just aren't so placid that they just listen to everything without questioning. What happens is we get no straight answers, there's no information. And then it leads to us thinking about things and saying, wow, if I can't trust this person, can I trust this entity? Can I trust this person? And then it becomes, then that's, I'm not saying this is a conspiracy theory, but that's where it starts. And then, so when we're not told proper information, or when we're outright lied to, like the creeks are safe and I jab sticks in there and chemicals boil out, then you say, what else are they lying about? But LabCorp and Quest Diagnostics, they're one of the largest lab testing facilities. I kind of think that, I'm going to lean on the side of them being legit. And they don't even, NMS Laboratories, I know, they have to, Quest doesn't even do that test. It's so specialized. They send it to that lab, which I'm going to go with their results. I do trust.
Like I said, this is all in my head the whole time.
And that's that's happened to us, because that's still, let's say that theory right there, let's say that one isn't correct. And I'm not saying it's not, but that has happened because they've bred all these thoughts, but it is still extremely wrong. You're sitting in that damn waiting room and you're furious because, we just had a chemical bomb go off in our town, and rightfully every one of us should be tested for vinyl chloride on an ongoing basis, because it's a chronic exposure in your home.
They're telling me it's stress-induced. It's the same symptoms. It's stress-induced. I know what stress is.
Yes.
Believe me, I've been way stressed out more than I am now.
So when you're treated like that, then these thoughts start happening. What is going on? Who's out to get me? Who's stopping this person from? And so that is a huge just something that they have totally done wrong with this entire
Yes.
mess.
Hasn't been
afterward.
transparent.
Yes. So go ahead.
So, and here's another part of it, and this is why my brain was thinking the way that was, where I'm out doing recon and stuff, is that we had a meeting down at the Eagles. We had the mayor, Trent Conway, and we had a supervisor for the federal EPA that worked the Flint case. We had him in this meeting. This again is all on camera.
So the Flint, the water.
Yes, the water.
And
yes.
The drinking water.
So I asked about the 0.1 VOCs. I knew that it was inadequate.
Can you explain what that means? Because nobody's going to know.
The VOCs is in everything in our home. It's the volatile compound. It's in plastics. It's in our flooring. It's in our paint. It's in our plastic. It's everywhere in our home.
And that's the big trend now. People like with paint, zero VOCs, because they're trying to get, trying to down the ratio of the VOCs in all of our products, because they know chronic exposure to those over time can lead to some serious disease.
Yes, and we haven't had a baseline of what we could test these VOCs at. So vinyl chloride in the millions or billions. We still ain't got a correct answer on it. But they're coming in our home and testing at 0.1 VOC. If these things in the millions and billions are harmful to our body, at 0.1 we would be in the hospital. There would be people like ICU. It would be bad under these chemicals at that high. So I asked the guy from the EPA, why are you testing 0.1 VOCs? He said, he told us straight to the face, and again, this is all on camera, that it was inadequate, just like I said. He said that their handheld test machines that they come into our homes with and said it was safe is completely wrong. He said they're inadequate. They only go to that. Same way with the little.
They're not sensitive.
They're not sensitive enough. The same ones that they have hanging on our stop signs and telephone poles in our alleys, they don't go down low enough to test for these harmful VOCs. The only thing to test for them is that little van that drives around.
Oh, the Togga bus?
The Togga bus.
Yeah, okay.
It can test, but if you go down to the EPA place and you look at the map, it goes down one road, turns around, and comes back another road. They're saying it's driving around town. Yeah. It's not.
That's why when I spent 20 minutes in the EPA office, and I would almost say 3 of them it was very non-productive, because it was just an argument instead of, I felt like they weren't trying to help me.
I had 5 of them surround me because I sat over at the park and watched them load trucks of dirt, the topsoil that they're removing. And I followed them up to Brookdale to the city dump by the cemetery and dump all the dirt there. Why remove the soil? And this is what I asked the EPA. Why remove the soil if there's nothing wrong with it?
From the city park.
From the city park.
Okay.
I know along the creek is contaminated, but you take all that dirt and you go dump it up at our city dump. What's the reasoning behind it, and why? Why? Same way with the truck that wrecked. What route was he on, and where was he taking that 20,000 ton that spilled on our roads and contaminated somebody else? Where was it going?
So I can only see 2 possibilities for removing it from the park and putting it in another part of town near people's homes, because I know where that is. One would be that it is not contaminated and it's safe to put in the other place just to make us feel safe. The other one would be it is contaminated and they put contaminated dirt in the area that is, still in town. I believe they're saying it's safe. Did they say
they did come out? The guys that was digging it up said that they give the same spew, which to me, everybody in town, and this again is in my head, everybody in town that is fighting and arguing is either, and not all business owners, but a lot of them are business owners. A lot of them have something to lose in town. They're coming at us with, ignorance. And I haven't been ignorant. But I've had some ignorant messages sent to me. I've had.
So you mean intimidation?
Intimidation, yeah. Why? There was a girl in town that had a tongue put on her porch. The people that are saying something, they're coming and they're harassing and being ignorant about it. And it's like, when it's all said and done, I think that they're going to see, and this is what I pray for, because no matter what, God will judge them in the end. But in the end, I hope I don't want an apology, but I want them to see that how many people fought for what's going on. You,
at least
for
question.
instance, yeah.
So,
And I'm not doing anything besides trying to get answers, and I have to get them on my own. So yeah, I'm out crawling on my belly through the woods, videotaping them dumping trucks, and this ain't who I am. I don't want to be this person.
So a lot of these things that you're talking about, my thing was, I live here out in the woods, just on the outskirts of town. My thing was the creek, and so a lot of these things I'm just a little bit familiar with. But again, when you bring up the park, if indeed that it is to placate us and everything was completely safe and let's move the dirt, we're all adults. Is it so smart to waste the money on that, which is completely safe dirt, if that's truly what it is, instead of spending that money helping the residents that live, right?
Yeah.
I mean, why spend the money on that if the dirt is safe up there and remove
it? It's the same way they said they controlled that flood was a controlled flood. Listen, I was down there. I'm the one that sent them pictures out. That was not controlled.
So a lot of you have no idea what he's talking about. They put up barriers in the park by the creek. That was by Leslie Run. Is it
Leslie Run, and it was right beside one of our restaurants that we eat at.
Yeah, and there's aerators there. And what do you remember? What the purpose of those? They were catching sediment, or what were the purpose of those barriers? And then
so that it didn't go over into our water duct, which is what, maybe 100 yards is where it starts from that.
Then
area.
We had a heavy rain, and the barriers.
It busted. It went over the barriers. All the booms, which collect the pollutants, they were all over the place. I mean, it was a mess. All of their equipment was underwater. Their tires and everything. It was all polluted. They hook them up and drive them right down our roads. It's nonstop. And again, in my brain, they're doing this right in front of our face. It's like, watch this. You can bitch about it all that you want to, but we're going to do it anyways because there ain't nothing you can do about it. And I seen that the other day when you spoke to Governor DeWine. It was like, shut up. We don't care what you have to say. Yeah. Let's hear from a reporter instead of hearing from the community.
The shame about that was, first of all, I let him know. I voted for DeWine twice.
So did I.
And we're treated worse than they might go after Norfolk Southern, But I asked, I said, because it's not 12 hours, just that night. He was there at 10 a.m. I was in the creek probably 7 p.m. at Easter night. I said, it's 3 minutes away. Let me go check it. After Easter, I'm sitting around doing nothing. And those videos were atrocious when I'm poking in there. And that's right in the park.
Bad.
It's right in the park. And so, I asked him, what are you going to do? What are we going to do about the creeks? But I said to the press, who was all lined up, I said, hey, he was there for a ribbon cutting of the clinic.
Yes.
And I said, you starting a clinic for people to make sure they don't get sick or monitor them, treat them after they're sick. What are we doing about the thing that's making them sick? And I said, I'll take you down to the creek and show you right now the contamination. Not one person in that hole. Now, granted, they might not want to go down to the creek, but I think it was more of a disinterest. Like, let's go on to the next story. This guy's a wacko, or I don't really even care. I want to further my career.
Listen, I've had videos of the EPA. I have videos of Trent. I've called the news reporter. You know what? We help them out to do stories. I've done 30 different news stories. We've helped them out.
The news.
News, the media.
Yeah.
And I call them about some of the issues that we're having. And they turn around and it's like a stab in the back. Mm-hmm. I ask them, please, we helped you. Can you please come back and help us? And guess what? Nothing.
On to the next story.
On to the next story, which we knew it was going to come. Yeah. I mean, this is, this is part of how it's worked forever. I just figured this was big enough to be a little longer than it was.
Yeah.
So that's why I appreciate you and, these other, people that are recording and doing these things, because if not, we wouldn't get a word out at all.
Question. So as somebody who grew up really close to here, and I've lived here 30 years now, and who voted for you twice, this is a very positive direction to go.
but it's also unfortunately very frightening that we even need this. So what are we still doing about the main cause of people getting sick, which is our creeks? As of Good Friday and Easter, heavily contaminated. And anybody that wants to see that, I can show them. I think the EPA says now that the water is clean or safe and they've taken the aerators away. Any comments on that?
While the cleanup continues, I'm going to ask Director Ann Vogel up here. Well, where she went.
Typical EPA.
That's not fair.
Well,
That's not fair at all. The Ohio EPA was here within 2 or 3 hours after this.
Governor, respectfully,
Okay,
why didn't they stop them from putting the tracks down over contaminated soil if they were here 2 hours after?
Are you going to let me answer?
Yes.
I'll take the first question.
These creek videos were filmed all over the Easter weekend. This last one was filmed 12 hours before the ribbon cutting ceremony. If I sound passionate, it's because the press and the governor can leave. We are stuck here. We have had no federal financial help. We are being poisoned. Are you back in your home?
I have to be back in my home.
So you are back?
Yes, I'm stuck. I have another county was like, here we have 3 siblings. DeWine says it's safe.
Oh, I see.
You know, he's actually the one that signed my foster care license. Here's 3 more kids. We'll throw them in your polluted home, and so be it, because DeWine said so.
And that's because when you're authorized to have children, they've already inspected your home initially.
Yes, I got background checks. It's the same way they said, well, why don't you go to Red Cross? Because they can't spend a night at Red Cross because the guy sleeping beside me doesn't have a background check, and they won't go for it. Same way, if even you or a teacher has to have a background check to take one of my kids, or it has to show proof of insurance. You know, the extensive classes that I had to go through, and, you know, CPR, crisis prevention. I have hours and hours and hours. You know, I've been doing this for 5 years. Hours of classes.
So has anybody professionally cleaned your home?
No. What I did is I called my homeowner's insurance. I had JS held. It's one of the largest chemical testing facilities in the United States. Come into my home, or the homeowners brought them in.
Who is that?
JS held.
Okay.
They came into my home. They did surface on the inside and outside. The first test they did was a strip, tape strip. They took all the dust particles because this stuff attaches to dust. So they took that. And the next one, they actually had measuring sticks and did swabs and all this other extensive. They said if something is wrong with the first test, then we'll go on to test more and more. Out of 6 stages, we are now on the 5th, one of the last ones. Something came back positive. I'm waiting for my results to come back. If that's the case, I'm not going to deal with NS to relocate me. I'm going to have my homeowners. I got one of the best insurances out there. You know, I went down today about, we'll get into my test results here in a minute, but I went down.
And he means Norfolk Southern when he says NS.
Yes, Norfolk Southern. They, you know, they've done about anything that I've asked, because I've went in there and I don't ask them permission, or I don't ask them anything. I demand respectfully. If you were respectful down there, most likely they'll give you a little bit of argument, but you're going to get what you want in the end.
You mean it's a reimbursement center?
Yes, reimbursement center. Take your receipts, whatever, air purifiers, test results, whatever that you need paid for. They've been pretty fair to me.
Okay, good.
I mean, I honestly, I went to Florida because I told them, I said, my family's in Florida, and, you know, well, we won't pay for your travel, or, you know, I said, that's fine. Pay for the hotel for these kids. They've never been to the ocean before. You know what I mean? Pay for it. What's the difference paying $150 here than paying $150 a night down there?
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we went down there for a week because my test results were supposed to be back in a week. So we said, let's get the heck out of Dodge, and when we come back, test results will go from there.
Okay.
So when I went down with the issue today, they told me to go look for a house or an apartment for 6 months, give them a price, and they would put me somewhere.
Mm.
And I just did this so that they knew my test results. I did it to put a little slap in their face this time, to be honest with you. I have no intentions of, at this point in time, I want to leave, but if I don't fight for the people of this community and for these kids and stuff, it goes against everything I believe in.
And we'll talk about this in a bit, but do you think your test results did that add to them maybe saying,
yes,
okay,
because
you
the
know
last
what,
time I went down there, I got escorted out from the place by the police because I told him I was filming. He was bringing up a subject, and I had it on video. Again, I record about everywhere I go, whether they like it or
smart.
not.
So you weren't allowed the video?
No, you're not allowed to video in there. By what he said, I talked to some people. I am allowed to video. It is privately owned, but it's a public place. I'm allowed to video, plain and simple. He asked. He said, Did I give you permission to film?" I said, "I didn't need your permission to film." And I did use the cuss word because he started making me mad. And this is where I made a mistake. He made me mad, and I made a mistake, and I cussed at him. You know what I mean? And so he brought the police officer over, and it was a female, and she went to grab a hold of my arm. And again, I'm pretty mad at that point to where if I'm disrespectful to somebody, I'm pretty mad. And she went to grab a hold of my arm. I said, "Am I under arrest or am I being detained? You know, get your effing hands off of me." And she did, and I walked out the door. That same day, I went home. My fiance took the same exact information that I had in this little box and took it down there. And he did not have a problem. He said, "You're easier to talk to." He said, "I'd rather deal with you. We don't want him back there." So I'm like, I'm easier to talk to because you've never dealt with her before. And I'm not saying she's a pushover, but she's a little more, she don't ask questions like I do. And you didn't like what I was asking you. And I called you a liar, and you knew you was a liar because I have you on film saying you're a liar.
So without getting too private, what was that about?
It was about the foster kids. They're trying to pull a thing where, and they're doing it for all businesses because I got the form, for loss of wages. Because to be honest with you, foster care is considered, it's not considered income in the state of Ohio. But actually it is, it's just not taxable. So I was just simply saying, I didn't want the money from them. I was simply saying, you don't understand how much I've lost in these 2 months. And I tried to explain to him.
I understand.
And I showed him the amount of what we lost and what these kids have lost. And you know, it's crazy how much we've lost in the last 2 months, not having the kids, emotionally, physically. And he didn't like what I had to say. I said, "I want my kids back. Put me somewhere where I can get my kids back." That's what I was fighting for. And he told me that when I went in the next time, that ain't why I came in here. Last time it was about Lori's health, because I was also fighting about that with her autoimmune. And I'm not giving them, they try to pry, and you can only give them so much, and that's what you got to watch going there. Because if you're they'll pry. They're good at what they do down there. They'll try to make people mad. They'll see a victim and they exploit it. They seen that I wasn't a victim and they didn't like it. Is what that boiled down to.
I want to ask you about your wife in a minute, but what do you mean they'll see a victim and they'll exploit it?
They'll see an old lady say that don't have no social media, or they'll see a younger woman that come in there with 2 kids that might not have been able to have nice things or something, and they'll do stuff to them. You know, they'll play the game. Here, well, here's $500, or here's $1,000 card, and $1,000 to them. You know, that could be 2 months' wages for them. You know, or it could be, you know, a couple weeks' wages at least. You know, they see that $1,000, or that old lady is getting Social Security. She gets $1,400 a month, and they want to hand her $1,000, you know, a week on them cards. It's exploiting them. You know, they're victims.
A steady stream of evacuees turned out to file claims with Norfolk Southern Sunday morning for unexpected expenses.
It's costing me right around about $400 a day. about $400 a day.
Eric Cozza has been staying at a hotel with his 3 foster children since Friday night when the train derailed, sparking a massive fire just 2 blocks away from his house. He left behind their pets and is concerned residents aren't fully informed.
Like the black smoke coming out of the train still, the shutoff valve that's slowly releasing the chemical that is hazardous. The EPA checking all the water, how far as it went.
Cozza is one of the thousands of residents evacuated who still can't return home as officials continue to let the derailed train cars, some containing the hazardous chemical vinyl chloride, burn.
I'm not taking it. Yeah. I'm going to pay my money out of my pocket, which I can do it. Not a lot of people can. And that's where I differ. You know, than a lot of people. I take your money. That way it's all in your bank account. When you use your card, it's on your bank account. So they can't come back later on. They can't say anything. Hey, listen, I got my bank statement right here. You ain't playing this game. If I'm using my money, I want cash back. I don't want your card because that shows nothing. I can take that Visa card and go buy whatever I want to with it. And there's no paper trail.
So I'm a little confused. So if you spend your money and then they give you a card with that same amount of money, is that what
well, that's what they try.
Okay.
If you turn in your receipts, they try to give you a card, you know what I mean, for the money that you turn. And I'm telling you, I use my own money. I want.
And when they give you a card with that, let's say it's a similar amount of money that
Yes.
the receipts were. What is the disadvantage of that?
The disadvantage is it don't leave a paper trail, so nobody knows what that money is spent on. So to be honest with you, you could take that card and go buy a new car with it, or go buy whatever you want to with it, and that's there's a disadvantage and there's an advantage. You can take it and do whatever you want to with the card. It's a Visa card.
Okay.
But you're not having a paper trail showing what your expenses were while this tragedy is going on.
Okay.
I want that paper trail.
Okay.
You know, if I'm going and buying Mucinex because I'm all stuffed up, I want that on my records saying that I bought Mucinex with it. I want, you know.
I see. So because it is their Visa card they're giving to you, they get
all the records go to them.
Oh, okay. So
you
I
know,
was unaware.
Yeah, like our bank statements. We get our bank statements. We have an itemized list of what we spent.
That actually makes perfect sense. Yeah.
So when we get their card, they have an itemized list of everything that we spent. That ain't the way that it works in my, you know.
Yeah.
You know, I brought up about, you know, during the first evacuation, we gave $1 million company or $1 billion company an interest-free loan. We funded our own evacuation. We went in and we gave them money that they should have had hotels paid for. A lot of people were homeless at the time. I had, you know, other people staying in the room because they didn't have a place to stay. We gave them an interest-free loan. They don't understand it. I've never had an interest-free loan. I know you never either. Never. So when I threw that up in their face, well, we reimburse you. What's the difference for me going to a bank and getting a loan? Yeah, I'm reimbursing them, but I still got to pay interest on it. You know, and they're not getting this in their head. It's like that we owe them.
This is an incredibly insightful point Jake makes here. We have been blessed with being able to pay our bills and have some savings, but we are not what I would call super wealthy. We have had to take out of savings to deal with this catastrophe. But most people in town don't have savings. They're living paycheck to paycheck. And they were expected to go out and get their own hotels, buy their own food while out in the hotels, totally disrupt their lives. And many of the people that go to the assistance center are treated rudely and scrutinized when handing in receipts. Norfolk Southern should be bending over backward. If they think people are taking advantage of them, then they can investigate later. But in the beginning, while people are so put out of their homes, they're so inconvenienced, to treat them the way they treat them is unconscionable. And mainly, I think I haven't noticed because I just think we're just going to get screwed, and it's another thing in life that we have to put up with. So we have spent the extra money to deal with this crisis. And also, I've been mainly concerned with the environmental and the poison aspect of all of this. And I am not so much involved in the financial aspect. Jake also clarified what he meant by keeping a paper trail. He said that when you take your receipts, Norfolk Southern keeps them and they do not give them back. They have a file on everybody.
Like them telling me to go find my own place and stuff. And I told him, why don't you go find me a place? Get some of your people in here to find me a place to go live. I don't have the resources. Right now there ain't no place to find.
People were talking about maybe in other disasters, those that wanted to leave, they might set up temporary, like an area where there would be like
a FEMA
camp.
Yeah,
something like that.
Again, we could go, and I think that's what they're, and again in my head, I think that's what they're going to do. It's going to be like a minute city or a FEMA camp's coming next. Because
I don't even see that, because I'm not sure I don't
know. See what that EPA guy says. When they did the south side of this track, what they dug up, they were digging in too big of increments. Okay, so the more dirt that they was digging up, the more was going in the air.
My Lord.
If they would have opened up that whole track at one time, like everybody wanted, why don't you just tear up the whole track and dig it all out? They would have had to evacuate again because the chemicals would have been so. So the guy from the EPA says that coming up the north side, they're going to do it in smaller increments. So that's why it went from June to August. Who knows when it's going to be done?
Needs addressed is, why are we getting sick? Why are our children getting sick? And at least from what I've been seeing, I have a lot of people reach out to me, because I am an organizer. Kids that weren't sick before are now getting sick since they're carrying up these tracks. I guess my personal question is, who made the decision that it was okay to tear up one side of the tracks at a time? Again, I'm not a scientist, but it seems like that's exposing us even longer. Yeah. And the EPA said that gases would come out of that. So if you have a train flying by on the other track, again, I'm not a scientist, but it's kind of like blowing it with a fan. Yeah. So I guess, that's my question is, who made that decision, if you know,
well,
and why?
We did approve that plan. So that's on us. We did approve that plan. The idea was, it's twofold, right? Keep the tracks moving. Of course, that's the railroad's interest. But on the excavation side, I wouldn't want to have that entire area opened up at the same time. And that's just larger surface area for gases to come to the surface to blow downwind. I honestly, just thinking back on this, I would like to see that happen in smaller sections.
Nearly 1 month has passed since a train derailment in Ohio released toxic chemicals into the environment. And a new study finds those chemicals still remain. Now, rail operator Norfolk Southern is temporarily removing the train tracks in order to get rid of additional soil soaked in the chemicals. A new study shows these chemicals can cause lung and eye irritation, headaches, and more. While it may take months to years to see those effects, residents remain concerned about any long-term implications.
So when they're digging up the new set, what's to stop it from oozing back under the old set?
There's not, and this was what I brought up in this
do the
meeting.
chemicals say, we're not allowed over
there?
They
dug 7 foot down, and this comes from the EPA. Again, like I said, everything that I'm saying is factual from the guy from the EPA when it comes to this. I hate to put out false information. He said they're digging 7 foot down and they're hitting clay. I said, what happens when water hits clay? It don't seep through the clay. It disperses. So that's why, Miss Walker, people over by the car wash, that's why the ground is bubbling over there. That stuff's dispersing. So they're going to work on the tracks, and then they're going to figure out how to go this way.
So I remember in a press conference, so this is new to me, that they're digging 7 feet down. I remember them saying that they were going to remove the tracks and dig 20 to 25 feet down. Do you recall that press conference?
I do recall that press conference.
So they're not digging. See that again? I'm Mr. Creek.
No, if you get on Facebook, there's a guy that flies around a drone. You can see the digging process.
Yeah, I know who that is.
Yeah, so I just don't like to throw out names.
No.
You know what I mean? So yeah, if you look in what I got video of, which I'm going to get you the video. You can watch it and edit some what you want to put in there or whatever. The EPA guy says because it's a long video. And anybody that wants to watch it, it's Ohio Valley. It's the second meeting.
Boy, 7 feet down doesn't seem like a lot, like
No.
very deep.
7 foot is not.
So your wife, myasthenia gravis?
Yes.
Did she suffered any type of
she has
anything after? Now was she gone?
She has
right?
a pacemaker and defibrillator from it. She's had it since she's been 24 years old.
But I mean, since the derailment, has she?
She hasn't got out of bed. She hasn't got out of bed. She gets up, gets a shower. She has been lately coming out and doing one of them little diamond dot things on. But no, she's down.
And she was like that prior, where she wouldn't get out of bed?
No. She was outside doing yard work. I mean, we have a beautiful home. You know, it's I built a big fountain outside. She's always out there doing flowers and stuff. No, let's put her down. And a lot of it's the depression from taking our kids.
I was going to ask you
because a lot of people don't realize they might have been foster kids, but these were our kids. I did not call them foster kids. These were my boys. You know, they went to Florida with us. We didn't get respite like most foster homes. They went with us everywhere we went. I mean, these were our kids.
Yeah, they were your family.
Yeah, they were family. They went to my mother's for cookouts. You know, they were family, and it devastated her.
They went to your mother's for what?
Cookouts and stuff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I cook, honestly. So I've got alligators and put them on the smoker.
Real alligators?
Did turkeys on the spit, pigs on the spit. You know, I shoot deer. I put a hind quarter on the spit. We're always over there cooking, and that's another thing too. My mom is devastated. She's an old, you know, she's older, and
your mother lives where?
She lives over on Garfield, which is within the 1 mile area too.
And how is she okay? Any
No,
symptoms
she was
with
sick.
your mom?
She's been staying in Canfield at a bread and breakfast, and they just went on vacation. And she does foster care too. She took all the kids down down to South Carolina. They're still down there. They're coming back Sunday. But like she said, she has to come back to a poison home.
So at any point, did she return home after the derailment?
She was there for approximately, I think, about 2 weeks, and she was deathly sick. We have 47 family members. I have 47 family members in the 1 mile zone.
Wow.
47. We got a big family right there, and what are we gonna do? We all gonna move away? We've been in this town for a long time. I mean, my grandfather was a World War II vet. You know, it's devastating that this has to turn out like this.
Had Norfolk Southern offered to professionally clean your home?
They offered to bring them in there and set off a canister of a defogger, but they wasn't willing to wipe anything down afterwards.
I've never even heard of anything like that.
Oh, you haven't?
Almost like
it was Sanitec.
You know how you do that for like
something?
a termite thing, but the different chemicals.
They sprayed in there. They said the only thing that they had to wipe down was the door handles. The rest would just.
So does this chemical make chemicals show
up? I didn't have
them
come in. I was like, there ain't no way you're bringing in something. Off
put a little bit more stuff.
I mean, I got their information. If anybody wants to have them come in and do it, and us will pay for it. But I ain't having them come in and set nothing off.
My initial, and this is maybe totally wrong, but my initial thought is you're going to add chemicals to a house that's already chemical, just chemically.
And we don't know if this chemical mixes with this chemical that mixes with this chemical. We don't even know what chemicals there is yet.
Yeah. Especially even
if you get the manifest is 72 pages long, and it's all codes. We don't even know what's on that train yet. To be honest with you, we have not a clue what's on that train. It started out with 2 chemicals. We're up to, I think, 6, and who knows what else was there.
So what are some of the things that, talk about some of the, is there anything that really you want to get a message out before going?
I want to get a message out, and this is what I'm going to tell you. I tested positive for vinyl chloride. I didn't test positive for benzene. My test results came back today. I got urinalysis. My urinalysis was last week. That shows me right there that this stuff's still in the air. So whoever's saying that it's not is a full-fledged liar. I talked to the Columbia toxicologist today. 24 hours to 36 hours, it dissipates from your urine. So that means we're in constant contact with vinyl chloride.
Yeah, and not necessarily just in the air in the environment, but the air in your home and your walls and your furniture.
Yes.
To me, that's a little more likely.
And this comes from Columbia County toxicologist. It can change every day depending on how much chemicals in the air. So your analysis could show one thing at one time, and you can go get it the very next day, and it could be higher, lower,
Yes.
whatever.
Yeah.
So as far as I'm concerned, any vinyl chloride, and this comes from the Columbia County toxicologist, any vinyl chloride is bad chloride.
Yeah. There's a reference range for thioglycolic acid.
I don't know too much about the numbers. You probably know more about the numbers than I do, except for the little bit of research that I've done just today. I've called the CDC, I've been to the EPA, toxicologist down in Columbia County. I've sent my things to DeWine, Sherrod Brown, JD Vance. I've put it out there, and I'm going to continue putting it out there.
So the one doctor, I had talked to one of the other people that tested positive for vinyl chloride metabolites. And when they went to the new clinic that Dr. DeWine just opened, Governor DeWine just opened, it was the same thing. She was so frustrated because when her and her husband went in, she tested positive.
Yes.
And then she said, wow, I tested positive. I've got an appointment the next day at this new clinic. And all it was 2 or 3 people arguing with her. And they said, this is what the doctor said. They said, well, we don't know, the lab. Well, first of all, where she got it done was very reputable. Secondly, and I believe that was NMS Laboratories. But secondly, if you go in with a positive, they argue with you. Then if you can't trust the lab, doesn't that mean that all the people that tested negative, why don't you just say those people could be positive? When you got the results back and you called the universities, and what did they have to say?
Any vinyl chloride is bad chloride. I feel right now, and again, this is my personal opinion, I feel that they're all paid off. And I know the city's paid off. I know that for an absolute fact.
What are the emotions that you feel? Is there a little bit of indication,
Sir,
anger, fear?
I've never been scared in my life from any man, woman, or beast. And I have fear. I have fear I have fear what's going to become of my fiance with her autoimmune. I got fear of DeWine signing my foster care license and saying it's okay and putting these kids in my home. I have fear that they've had a rough life, and now they might have a rougher life. I feel ashamed, but they have nowhere else to go. And that's why I'm trying to sort of find them a way out also.
You feel ashamed because you have them in a house you're not sure of?
Yes,
you're not sure
yes,
of? Yeah. And
yes.
whether it's safe
I do.
or not?
It's against everything I stand for.
Yeah. And not just the house. You're so close to the
accident. Yeah. I mean, I go out. I have a beautiful bike. To be honest with you, I'm 50 years old and 20 years with cancer. I got 1 foot in the grave. You know what I mean?
No, that's not going to happen.
But, well, I'm just saying,
yeah.
I'm looking at the generations. I'm looking at the kids. I'm looking at people, even though that you don't agree with my opinion, like I put on your page, I'll still protect your kid, even though you don't like my opinion. Mm-hmm. I'm going to protect you. I'm going to protect your kids. And I'm definitely going to protect my family and friends. And right now, there's no protection for us.
Now, you mentioned earlier, too, that the chemicals in the air. When I went to talk with the EPA, as they had admitted to me that as they were, I wanted them to take the Taga bus down to the aerators, with 24 aerators.
Oh yeah, they're never going to take that Taga bus except for that one beeline.
They're gone now, the aerators, because supposedly the creeks are clean, even though I stuck the stick in the other day.
They're going to start the settlement cleanup now.
Yeah,
and this is something that just totally blows my mind. They said the water's clean, the surface water, okay? Now they're going to start working on the sediment. Bringing that sediment up goes right back into the same problem that we had before. It's in the water and the air coming from the sediment. It's going right into our banks that they just dug up and planted pretty new grass.
The banks are heavily contaminated.
Yes,
I didn't release that video yet because
I have my own. I went down and did the same thing.
There's a reason that I didn't release that video. It's so conspiracy theory that I didn't want to talk about it, but I'll leave that for another time. Okay. But getting back to the chemicals, from the EPA told me that as they were doing the cleanup, the Taga bus was getting high hits of butyl acrylate in the air, and she said, "Oh, and that's the sweet burnt smell that all the people around the homes there smell." I would think that if you have butyl acrylate in the air that people can smell, you would get those people out of there. And that you talk about you not wanting your
You'd have to shut down the
kids.
railroad, and that means it would take us to evacuation.
So you
They
have
ain't
the
shutting down that railroad. I don't care. Until somebody dies, there's nothing that's going to be done until somebody dies. And that's, as soon as that happens, then this will do a little flip flop. And it's sad to say it like that, but it's going to take somebody to die, and that's how I feel.
So I've seen. Lastly, I'm going to let you end this. I've seen. I actually like your posts and things on Facebook.
Yeah.
And I was off Facebook for 4 years. It took this dumb thing to happen to bring me back on Facebook because it's not my thing. But your posts are both funny, but they're also they're just blunt.
Yeah.
So I know some people don't like that, but meeting you in person seemed like a great guy who's caring about his family and who
I care about everybody.
Yeah.
It's just that I care about this community. I'm blunt because sometimes we're getting slapped in the face, and sometimes blunt is a good thing. I've told several people have told me I have no filter. In this case, if we have a filter and we don't speak out loud, and it's gonna be people's laid off for me because I'm so blunt. They've laid off. They was bashing, and now they're afraid to bash because I'll call them out respectfully, and they don't like it because everything that I put on there is facts. I'm not putting anything out there but facts. I've walked from East Palestine all the way to Negley through that creek that I've fished since I've been a little kid. There is nothing alive in it. It is dead.
Tuesday night when I was filming, I filmed after dark, and you ought to see that stuff. It glows like an interstellar universe. Oh my gosh, when the sun hits that stuff.
I haven't went down there dark.
It looks like a black light.
Did you find life then?
I found death. I was down below the park in Leslie Run. And so I'm filming these chemicals on Tuesday night. We've got smallmouth bass coming down dead on the surface, which when I release that film, you'll see it. Yeah. So yeah, it's not only killed everything, but it's still killing.
Like I said, I have some films that when I release them, I'm waiting for the wait time also, probably like you are. It's going to blow their minds.
I can't wait to see them.
Yeah, I've tromped through that creek. I have filmed some shady stuff going on. I know the city's bought off. That came out of the mayor's mouth alone when he said, they asked about, do you have an attorney? And he says, if we get an attorney, NS will shut off all funding.
Let's talk about this. So again, I knew our fire chief for many years. I don't even know he's our fire chief now because I don't do anything politically.
Yeah.
I live back in the woods here. So set this up. What are you talking about? You were at some.
We was at a meeting down in the fire or the Eagles in New Waterford. The mayor and the supervisor for the federal EPA was there again. The question was asked from somebody that was also at the meeting. Did you get legal representation? It was asked to the mayor.
For the city.
For the city.
Okay.
Yeah, for the city.
Okay.
He said we cannot get legal representation because the railroad NS will shut off all funding. I was like, wow. If that's not coming out there, it was the first honest answer. And this what was made me happy. That guy from the EPA and Trent at that point in time, they both came up with some honest answers. Even though that we didn't like it, they were honest. We cannot they won't give us no more funding if we get legal representation.
Wow.
And this is how I know this also, because if you go down to the center for down in New Waterford to that center.
Does making it right, even if you're held responsible for something later by attorneys, oh boy, does that hinder upon whether you do the right thing at this moment? So you'll say, well, if you get your attorneys, then we're out of here. We're done.
As a village as a whole, have you sought any legal counsel at all?
Yes and no. We have. Just they're consulting. because as of right now, we are getting everything we need as the village. I know not the people, please don't take that wrong. As the village, we are. As soon as you involve a lawyer, everything's going to stop and the funds are going to dry up, and then we're going to wait years.
All right, so I asked you to end it before. You said something intriguing, so then I
got you.
tell me something, and then I interrupted you. What this whole thing? If you think about it for a moment, how would you like to end? What would you like to say to people?
I would like to say that people need to be more observant of what's going on. If not, let the people that have this fear, this stuff, let them. It's their way of coping, even if you don't believe in it, because right now there's scientific facts that we are still being poisoned, even if you don't believe it. Stand beside us. We all got to come together. I don't care who it is or what the circumstances are. We got to come together. Even we have an entity to beat. Nobody's ever beat them before, and I think that we have them. They're kind of frightened at us right now because of people like me and you and my sister, and there's a few of us out there that are fighting. There's a lot of people that believe what we're believing, but they won't say nothing because they're afraid of the repercussion. Be vocal, be blunt, ask questions, lots of questions, and if you don't like the question, ask it again and ask it again and keep asking. That's it. The transparency hasn't been there. The honesty. If somebody come and told me, "Hey, you're being poisoned. It's your choice to be there," then let me make that decision. Just be honest with me. And that's what I'm telling NS. Be honest, or the EPA, or the CDC, or even our local government. Because right now, our local government is failing us. It's probably the worst case of failure I've ever seen in a city government I've ever seen anywhere in my life. I've been in a lot of places. It's failing us.
Well, I lied. Let me end this then.
Okay.
You just made me think of something. You talked about, at least let us cope the way, ask the questions. Maybe we're going to ask some questions that might make you happy later.
Yeah.
When you think about something like a bomb going off in your town like this, let's compare this to like these shows with the zombie apocalypse.
Yeah.
Okay. What's worse than the zombie apocalypse or these fungus infections and these science fiction things? And I think these writers know that it's what happens to the people after and how they fight. And what the real fear is how people fight amongst themselves when there's like an apocalypse. So
Walking Dead.
Yeah. So
watch it.
So would you agree? Let's just, let us ask the questions, let us put stuff out there and disprove us. And if we are correct, maybe someday you'll thank us.
Yeah, and be respectful about it. That's the end of it. Respect.
Sorry you tested positive for vinyl chloride metabolites. Yeah. Be okay. And I'm hoping somebody's going to test you in another 3 months or so.
I'm going to do it as much as I possibly can.
Okay.
Now that I found the loophole.
Yeah.
I'm just, you're a provider to me. I've seen you a few times as far as at your office, so I'll be getting prescriptions and I'll be doing the same thing. I'll have a stack of bills this big, but I'm going to do it.
Well, nice meeting you, Jake. Thanks for the interview. Thank you.